Always trust.
I'm Osama bin Javed in Damascus. After 14 years of war, crippling sanctions and widespread corruption, Syria's economy is in ruins, much like its cities. With Bashar al-Assad gone, the new administration is trying to rebuild, but the challenges are considerable. A collapsed currency, soaring inflation, and millions of people in need of humanitarian assistance. The transitional government is promising reforms, reconstruction, tax overhauls, and foreign investment. But with most international sanctions still in place and the scars of war everywhere, how long will the recovery take? Stay with us as Syria's new Finance Minister Mohammed Abazeed talks to Al Jazeera. Mr. Mohammed Abazeed, Finance Minister for Syria's interim government, thank you very much for talking to Al Jazeera. Let's start with the situation of the economy of Syria. I've spoken to people who are being paid $30 a month. I've met soldiers, former soldiers, who were paid $20 a month. Describe to us what is the state of Syria's economy.
In the name of Allah Almighty, of course, as everyone knows, on the 8th of December 2024, Allah Almighty have helped us to topple the criminal regime. Since the day after, we went into the institutions of the country, used to be led by the previous regime, and honestly speaking, we were surprised because we know before, yes, that these institutions run by the previous regime were dilapidated and are having a lot of problems. But it didn't ever come to our mind that these problems and that these institutions are really dilapidated to such an extent. For example, at the very beginning, we searched for some numbers to know the situation of the country. At that time, we looked for the debts, and we didn't get an accurate number because of the lack of the records. We were also surprised that the companies in the economic sector that were managed by the regime are loss-making companies. For example, we have approximately 130 economic companies at the state level, and the majority of them are either loss-making companies or companies that haven't submitted any data since 2018-2019, to the point that some of these companies haven't submitted budgets since their establishment to clarify their financial position, which would help at a later stage in monitoring these companies. All of these things represented a negative indicator at the initial stage regarding the financial situation of the country.
Looking at the economy of Syria, how much money did you have in the bank to pay the salaries? How much are the foreign reserves of Syria? And what is the plan to replenish them?
Regarding the central bank, the data we got from there should be more accurate, and we have reached negligible numbers of gold and hard currency, and we haven't found the reserves that we expect to find of hard currency or even gold. Most of what was in Syrian banks was Syrian currency, the lira, which was worth nothing more than worthless paper. This has become a major problem that we are now trying to sort out. The question is, how can we support the hard currency in the Syrian Central Bank that will benefit the country and its economy in the next stage? So the first step is to try to lift the sanctions, and the next step is to move towards investment. meaning inviting friendly and sisterly countries to invest in Syria. And this will never happen without lifting the sanctions. And we will create a suitable environment for investment, and we will support also the tourism sector. That is very important to allow hard currency to come to the country. Also, we will reconsider the tax sector, because taxes constituted before the fall of the regime between 72 to 70% of the total revenues. And today, any investment at any country will concentrate always on the taxation system. What has happened so far is that the European Union, and we thank the EU for that, has lifted some items from the European sanctions, but they don't have a significant impact. For example, the European Union imposed a ban on the import of oil sector equipment and sanctions on the finance and banking sectors, and criminalized companies that open branches in Syria. But the European Union lifted these sanctions for only 1 year. It's known that the smallest investment need 2 or 3 years to be described as a profitable investment.
That is exactly what I was going to ask you, because you've got all of these people coming in. There's serious friends in the region and beyond who've said that these sanctions need to be lifted. But like you mentioned, there's only been a temporary lifting of sanctions. And if it doesn't happen, what is your fear that will you be able to continue to run this country and essentially pay the salaries for hundreds of thousands of employees?
Of course, we are talking about our hope that the countries in the world and the regional countries, especially our brothers in the Gulf Cooperation Council countries and our brothers in Turkey, with whom we have seen seriousness in helping our country in supporting Syria with modern technologies and expertise, etc. During the coming stages, this vision can be crystallized. When we work and when we assume our government positions, we had several plans for work in the coming period. But honestly and frankly, we also count on external support, because if the sanctions are not lifted and if the external support is not provided by the surrounding countries and Western countries and the countries of the world, we will not stop. We believed in our capabilities to achieve this renaissance, and we paved the way for these investments, and we have managed to achieve small things, not as big as we dreamed of. We have so many capabilities, we have companies, and we can work to rehabilitate these companies in a way that can be useful. We can make use of some expertise that will support us.
So you talked about quite a lot of resources here, but what you did not mention is oil. Syria in the 1990s went up to 600,000 barrels a day, and you're barely producing any oil because there are problems in the north. Are there any steps that you are taking as the Ministry of Finance to bring in investment into oil, restart Syria's oil and gas industry? Because it used to be at least a third of your economy. Another third used to be agriculture. So just those two sectors could resurrect the Syrian economy. So what's the plan?
We talked at the beginning of the interview about the sanctions related to oil sector. There are some sanctions regarding oil sector.
But it's not just sanctions. You don't have control over those fields.
The issue of control is ultimately a political issue. As you heard in the news, it may be resolved politically or militarily in the coming periods. At the end of the day, as economists, or as the Ministry of Finance, we look forward to the situation that the next solution in the Qasad region will lead to. The Syrian leadership has said more than once that it will not be satisfied in the end except with one united Syria. Therefore, the resources that will be in the region east of the Euphrates, Deir ez-Zor, Hasaka, and other areas, these resources must be part of the Syrian treasury.
Let's talk about the Syrian people. There are people who are going to be looking at this, and they'll need to know, as you mentioned, the state of the economy. How much money are you making? How many employees do you need to pay? And do you have that balance sorted out? I know you've only been in power for less than 2 months, but do you have that balance sorted out?
I will start with what you concluded. We've only been in power for 2 months, which is not enough, honestly, to study the many aspects of a country that was under the control of a regime whose corruption was seen by everyone for 60 years. However, with regards to the state employees, the regime used to approach a system that sought to please a certain group and follow a politicized employment for them. The regime, in order to please those people, used to employ them. It is a politicized employment, and we have seen so many contracts signed by individuals of those people regarding those who have spent like 9 years or 10 years in the Syrian army. So as to please them, the regime signed contracts with them. And during the 2 months of me in the Ministry of Finance, I have seen a lot. For example, in the Ministry of Finance, I'm not talking about any other ministry, the current situation of the Ministry of Finance without digit and no modern technology, it needs only 50% of those people employed by the previous regime. I have a problem now. I'm facing a problem now. When I go to a place that, for example, needs 5 employees, I see 10 employees there doing that job. This is a job slack and employees in offices that the work doesn't need. If I want to increase wages, I must end this problem. And the biggest problem in this connection is the employee who is full-time. You cannot sack this employee, or you cannot contract his, you cannot cancel his contract, because according to the law, the full-time, the permanent employees cannot be sacked without exceptional decision, or if he reached the age of pension. How can we sort out this problem? There are so many ways. For example, these people or these employees whom we don't need them actually, they are surplus in the offices. They can be enrolled in certain courses, and we can teach them so many programs, computer programs. And you know what? Many of them are university graduates, but they joined the army 2011, left the army in 2021, and he doesn't have a real chance to get some experiences. They just employed him to please him, and that's it. And we were surprised to see some of those employees who cannot even use the Excel program. And there are employees who cannot even prepare a report in a professional way, in a professional way, professional medium way. We have seen some employees who are still using Windows XP. We have found some employees who have no experiences. They only got the job because of the favoritism, and this was very well known previously in Syria.
So as I understand, the two major problems that you have is one is corruption, and the second are the sanctions to run this country. How big is the problem of corruption? If you were to put a number, how much money are we talking about that was stolen from the Syrian people, and how much of it do you estimate is frozen in terms of assets which were taken abroad from this country?
Regarding the assets frozen abroad, we reach certain figures and numbers, but until now and on a daily basis, we are getting more assets. This is because the absence of the resources that are well trusted. Regarding the corruption, I don't know from where can I start. Corruption is deep inside everywhere, starting from the administrative sector, the economic sector, and the financial sectors. When it comes to the administrative sector and the jobs that were given to people, and according to the Syrian slang, it's favoritism, and we have also dealt with some of the companies, and we found that there are companies since 2019, they haven't submitted any data. The companies must have one report to be submitted at the end of the day, but most of these companies haven't done that, and we have asked for some reports and some lists in order to know about the financial situation of these companies, and we were surprised companies haven't done anything since 2015.
Sorry to interrupt, but you knew about these challenges. You knew how corrupt the system was, and yet when you came to power, one of the first things that was announced was a 400% increase in salaries. So was that too early, or is that still in the works? Will people see a rise of 400% in their salaries?
بداية كذلك انتهاء من السؤال الماضي.
At the very beginning, I'd like also to say that there were some companies which are presided over by certain persons who got PhD degrees in 2 months. They traveled to a country, got a PhD in 2 months, returned back, had the job, and presided the company because they are very close to the previous regime. We have seen so many things like that. Regarding the salary increase, we arrived at Damascus, and the new administration said there will be salary increase 400%. And this was a necessity because of the hardships the Syrians have seen. The employees used to say that their salary is enough only for 2 or 3 days. So we decided to give them this salary increase before even having all the data regarding the country. This salary increase is there, but we need to do some framing because we need to discuss the details of the public sector, and we will increase the salaries 400% at the end or beginning, as I said, on remember, of February, if we made this restructure. Until now, we haven't finished this restructuring, and so many things in so many ministers have not yet been determined. so many other ministries and departments don't know a lot about so many staff, so many employees, and whether they are in the records or not. I have noticed a lot of requests to non-paid leave, non-paid annual leave in my office, and I discovered that these requests are for people who are not inside the country. They are only persons who got their salaries, they have names in the records, but physically they are not in the country. We have found some employees who were asked to work in some other places, and we don't know about their jobs over there. When the regime fell, they came to us and they said, we are here. This environment is not proper. We cannot pay salary increase in such amount, but without knowing who will get this money. We say that there are surplus, like 600,000 surplus employees. I can't pay 400% for 600,000 individuals who are surplus, and I'm not going to pay because we are sure that they are surplus. We need to do reconstruction, and we need to put those people in other places. If we decided to give him a salary with the other benefits, we need him to be helpful, we need him to be, or them to be useful, and we need everyone to know that the salary is paid because those people are supposed to be useful to the country.
As I understand, the way you're going to resurrect the economy is to get away from the sanctions and then bring in investment. As an investor, it would require them to have legal protection, political stability, and a trust in the country. You are running a government which is an interim government. There is no clarity over how long this government will last, what legal framework it's going to follow. How are you going to convince people to invest money in Syria?
We are an interim government, and we, within this transitional period, it's normal to take and adopt certain procedures, and we are planning to have a law companies for the companies that will increase the investment law and the stock exchange reorganization in a complete way. Also, we are forming committees to study the monetary policy of the country. We are now offering part of the investments owned by the country to the investors from inside Syria, to those who want to invest with the OT contracts, in order to achieve this renaissance and to achieve this progress without putting burdens on the treasury. And the legal framework will be there after the new constitution during the coming period. Security-wise, on a daily basis, we are following up the remnants of the previous regime. Security will be all over the country very soon. What has happened in Syria hasn't happened in any other country. The regime falls today, the next day people feel security and safety. We have seen that in Damascus and in Aleppo. In other countries, if the regime falls, the countries stay in this situation for months. But after 2 months, we had that. We have a chance. We have a chance, and we have indications. Everyone comes and goes. Security is there, like 80%. And these are signs that can say investments will be safe. We have discussed with so many delegations One delegation 2 days ago wanted to leave us with a contract signed. He came only for 1 or 2 days because he has seen the truth and the reality that is suitable for the investment. We, as much as we can, are doing our best. The chance is there for us to create such environment.
Finally, the currency of your country is now the Syrian pound, and it is fluctuating against the dollar. It goes to 6,000 pounds against $100 to 13,000 pounds against $100 in a day. That means that there is a lack of trust in the currency market, and it's fluctuating. How are you going to restore that trust and ensure that the price of your currency remains stable and becomes stronger?
تمام. باختصار.
Yes. To make a long story short, the strength of the currency comes from the strength of the economy. And these imbalances, today, for example, the Syrian lira equals $1 is 13,000 liras. On the other market, the difference is big. And we all know that this is not a real difference. The Syrian pound or the Syrian lira today, it depends on the demand. And we are in an environment that is quite ready for this. So today, as a monetary policy in the coming period, and the Syrian Central Bank, during also the 2 or 3 coming months, during this period, probably we can see the Syrian lira or the Syrian pound is protected and will never fall. The Syrian lira today is almost floating because it depends on the market. With the stability of the situation, with the stability of the security, with the stability of the political atmosphere, with the support given to the Syrian Central Bank, I think the Syrian lira will be stronger than its situation in 2011. $1 was 3 liras before the former regime. I'm sure that with the stability, with the political stability, the Syrian lira will be stronger and it will be as usual.
وإن شاء الله تعالى تعود إلى وضعها السابق.
Mr. Mohammed Abazeed, the Finance Minister for Syria's interim government, thank you very much for talking to Al Jazeera.
شكرا لكم.